What is going on, guys? I am Samuel and welcome back to Louisiana. Now, right now I'm at my quarter pipes. You've probably seen these before. I've done a lot of stuff with them, and I've had them for 5 or 6 years now. They've been pretty solid. They're 3.5 feet tall. They're a little small, and now I ride mountain bikes. And I'm getting taller. I have more pop and stuff, and they just feel a little bit tiny. So I decided, what's the thing that I should upgrade my backyard with? A bigger quarter pipe. So with that in mind, I went over to my grandpa's house one day and I was like, hey, do you think it'd be possible for us to build like an 8-foot quarter pipe? And then a few days later, I went back over to his house and I was like, well, you ready to go start the quarter pipe? And now I am proud to present to you the beginnings of my 8-foot quarter pipe. Now this ramp looks pretty massive, especially, in comparison to my backyard, but it's actually not too huge looking once you think about it. It's 8 feet tall. There's a 9-foot radius, so these curves are about 9 feet out. And I think it's gonna ride incredibly well on the mountain bike. Gonna have a lot of room for those bigger tires. Gonna be able to, have a little more hang time on it, not quite be so cramped, not have to worry about, flying off the top of it. That was my biggest complaint about my current quarter pipe, is since it's such a tight radius, but it's a really low ramp, it's not really steep enough for you to fly back into the quarter pipe. Kind of wants to send you out of it. So this should kind of solve that problem, give me a little more hang time, and I cannot wait to ride it. So with that, we have to finish building it. We have 4 more of these little curved ribs made that have to be tacked on inside this frame. Then get some 1x4s, cover it up, have a little ramp, maybe have a guardrail up top so I don't fly out. And then we should be ready to rip this thing. So another day of labor on the ramp has been completed. This is where we're at now. We have all 6 curved ribs on here, along with some 45-degree struts to kind of add some bracing in the middle, where there's gonna be a lot of impact. And I want to explain to you why some of the things are made the way they are on this ramp. Starting off with how tall it is. Look right here. So this section is actually 8 feet tall, and as you can see, we have some 2x4s that basically form a box. They're connected at the top, they're connected at the bottom with a rectangle, and then there are 6 uprights, 2 on each end, and then 2 in the middle, that connect all of that together. And those are 8 feet long, 8 feet tall, and 4 feet wide, and we made 2 of those. Now you might be wondering, why do we make 2 of these boxes? That means the ramp is gonna be 16 feet wide. Well, the reason for that is my old quarter pipes are about 3.5 feet tall, basically 4 feet if you round up, and they're 8 feet wide. And that ratio of width to height works really, really nicely for any kind of tricks. Gives you a lot of room to work with. So, since this ramp is gonna be 8 feet tall, which we already established with those back sections, then it needs to be 16 feet wide just to accommodate, have some room for error, a little more room for stuff to do. So that's why it's so wide. Now, to make sure the back section is really strong, because it's gonna be holding all of the weight, it has a lot of bracings. It has some 45-degree struts on the ends, and it has some 45-degree struts on the back and on the front. But that's just the back section, and 2 big boxes does not make a ramp. So how are these curved ribs made? I have the answer. On my old ramps, I use an 8-foot radius, and for 26-inch mountain bike tires, that's really nice. It's enough pop, but it's not too tight to where your bike feels cramped. But for this, I decided I wanted to make the radius 9 feet. That would give me a little bit more leeway to make sure I didn't have any margins of, mistakes that compressed it too much. So I went with a 9-foot curvature, and to be able to cut that into some boards, I wanted to use 2x4s for the actual supports, because I thought that cutting into plywood would be a bit too weak. Now, you cannot just take a 2x4 and lean it up at this angle and then cut it at that arc, because the arc is pretty steep. So instead, there are 4 sections of 4-foot lengths of 2x4 each, and they're cut at an angle. They're actually cut at about a 12-degree angle, and then they're joined together with these little joins, as you can see right here. So what that basically does is make a 4-section blocky curve, and then you take a 9-foot stick and you trace out that radius on those boards. And because they're curved just about at the points, where there's a pretty significant degree of bend in your arc, then you're able to get a saw and cut out between all the boards that 9-foot radius. So because it's a 9-foot radius on an 8-foot tall quarter pipe, it's not quite vertical, but it also means that I have some extra board kind of sticking out of the ends here. It's actually coming back up. So sometime before I start putting these the deck on, I'm gonna have to chop those ends off right about where it ends and starts making that half of a curve. Since these things are so big and so spread out across a 16-foot ramp, I had to make sure they were all straight and connected somehow. You can actually see some of them are a bit higher above the ground, and then if we go over here, some of them are actually recessed into the ground. And to make sure they're all the exact same height, I have this string, and it's connected between all the boards, and they're just right at the height of that string to make sure that every board is the exact same height. And then the final step to make sure that these ribs did not sag at their bends, I added in some 45-degree struts kind of in the middle where the most sag is happening and the most pressure is going to be on them. And this is bolted in both to the back of the ramp and straight into these curved rib sections. And that should be able to support a lot of weight, and it really took out a lot of the sag and a lot of the flex that these ramps had. And the only other support that I added is actually for the deck up top. And right in the middle of here, I've stuck another 2x4. That's just gonna hold a little extra weight, so when I land up top, it's not gonna sag on the plywood too much, or, you know, maybe crack a hole in it. I don't want that to happen. So that's the basic idea of how my ramp was built. It's 8 feet tall, 16 feet wide, has a 9-foot radius, and everything's going pretty well to plan. The most tedious part of this was taking all of those 2x4s and cutting them at 12 degrees each, and then bolting them together in just the right spot to cut the radius. But once that was done, and once they've all been mounted, it's been going fairly well. Well, I'm now able to say some words I never thought I'd say. I have completed building an 8-foot mega ramp in my backyard. So now the time is to put in some dirt kind of at this little lip where it's raised off the ground a little bit. And as soon as that's in, this is gonna be ready for testing, which is probably gonna be the scariest part of this whole build, is actually seeing if it works. But I'm quite stoked, have my helmet on. So as soon as I get this packed in, we'll get some tires on the ramp. So as you can see, we've got the dirt packed in, and now it's time for me to actually air the thing. And there's nothing I'm super concerned about because it is a quarter pipe. So the whole thing is actually a really safe ramp to ride. My only issue is I don't really know what to expect. I don't know how much compression it's gonna be in the bottom. I don't know how much pop I'm gonna get out of the top. I don't even know what speed to really ride at, so I don't really wash out and can't turn or go too high and fly off of it. So I'm just gonna guess. I'm gonna do a really safe air, just kind of over to the left. So something I'm really familiar with. I have time to feel it out in case stuff goes wrong. So let's give it its maiden ride. GoPro is on. That's a really chill ramp to ride. So let's give it a little bit more juice. Yes! We built a ramp that rides. That's pretty good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this process of how I built an 8-foot ramp in my backyard. And if any of you decide to try to build one of your own and you have any questions, you can comment this down below and I'll answer them as best I can with what I did in my own ramp. And it is so fun to ride. I never thought I would see the day that I genuinely had a competition-sized mountain bike ramp in my backyard. I mean, it's certainly not a mega ramp, but it kind of feels like it when you look out of your back door and this is what you see. So I'm so excited. Thank you guys so much for watching and coming along with this journey of constructing a new backyard ramp. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.